Okay, welcome to Stampscaping 101. This is a scene that I just stamped out, and it features kind of just a handful of different stamps. Right here, the main structure of it is the rocks and leaves stamp, but I wanted to stamp out kind of a more intimate scene, something that didn't involve a lot of expansive areas with mountains and whatnot, and waterfalls. I just wanted to create something that might be represent something that's happening kind of more in the shallows, like something that you'd kind of be hiking, along a stream and maybe spot or whatnot, or going fishing in the early morning and kind of that's what's happening, or kind of a scene of a little area that's happening out in nature at midnight or something like that. But that being said, kind of creating this quiet, more intimate pool, there's a lot of textures in here. Those rocks running back in here, the use of the tiny rock stamp, the lily grass, even this was used right here, the ripples stamp, stamped out, and is very subtle, but what that creates, using all that, and then of course adding a lot of different tones down there in the white pen, it creates kind of a nice rich textured surface. And with all that texture and surface in there, and layers of imagery kind of representing depths of the water, stuff that's happening on the top of the surface of the water, and kind of something lighter impressions of it represent something below the surface. It can create a very rich, deep scene, but just in a more intimate way. And this kind of passage of light kind of creeping through here was created by just the retention of the lightness of the white of the page, by creating this, by keeping these darker tones out of that area. And on this one right here, I really experimented around with some different colors. There were some green tones, blues, and using some of the Distress Ink warmth in there, which I think was really effective, in having these kind of warmer passages throughout there. And that warmer tone is beneath these areas as well, so transparent colors, if you lay them down kind of in your initial layers, and even if you layer over the top of them, they're going to affect the overall, because these colors are transparent, so the colors underneath are going to affect what you see in the end result, even if you layered over them with multiple colors afterwards. Okay? So anyways, I hope you enjoy this scene and the creation of it. Thanks for watching. Okay, to begin this scene, I'm going to stamp out the rocks and leaves stamp, and I think I want to get a lot of variation in the impressions themselves, in terms of color. And I was trying to think of what colors that I wanted to use on here. And I think I'm going to go with a base of just straight black, but I'll try to work some additional tones into it. I don't want the leaves to be just so bright green. I want it to be kind of a darker tone, and I'm going to use black as kind of the foundation. And when I usually color stamps, if I'm doing multiple tones, I usually start off with a dark color, then I work light. They say you're supposed to work kind of in reverse to that. Start off light, then work darker. That way you won't kind of pollute your pens with darker tones. But I just think things blend better if you go dark to light. And what I do is that there should be a little. This is a kind of a steel blue pen right here, And I'm going over the black, but you know, if I want to get that black off the pen, I do that. I just kind of swirl it off a little bit, and I find that it doesn't do any, you know, it doesn't pollute the pen long term. Okay, now I want to do a real kind of intimate scene here, and what I mean by that, an intimate scene, I'm talking about in terms of space. You know, I want to have, I don't want to work deep space into this. I want to just have this scene just maybe a maximum of what might represent 10-15 feet in distance from the, you know, the closest area to the farthest. Alright, now this is the impression here. There's a little bit of subtle variation of greens in here and black. Now, that looks pretty good to me. I'll do it again. I'll try to go a little bit faster. I'm going to go for, obviously, multiple impressions with a stamp. Black, green, and this, I'm not sure what color this is. This is a number 56 Marvy pen. Does not come in pad form. I don't know, I mean, I used it because, I don't know, it was the only pen in this kind of color range that I just saw. You know, it was just convenient, so, you know, it's not one that's specifically geared towards this image or, you know, the color scheme that I'm using. It just happens to be the one that I had, so, you know, don't get, you know, locked into it. Now that one, the impression is a lot different. It's more green, and I accidentally colored it up with the bottle green instead of black, so I don't know, they were so close, and you know, this little ring of color around it, but that is not going to be any problem. You know, you just get a little bit more variation that way. This one I just did color up with black. So in other words, you know, don't worry about it too much. Alright, now this one, I didn't know where I was going to stamp that at. I didn't need to color the whole thing, but I just decided, you know, when I got to it, I'm just stamping out this little portion of the image. And trying to decide if I want any more of this. I was thinking about this oak branch in here, you know, or something like that. Maybe, I don't know. I think I'll leave that as is. I was thinking about doing this jumping bass. It's kind of like this little area, this little pond type of area where there's kind of like a secret fishing hole, or represent kind of, you know, something going on in nature. You know, this quiet pool when no one else is around. I don't know. Okay, now we're going to start off on the scene. Let's lay down some colors in here. There's other imagery that I'm going to stamp in here, but I think I want to lay down some tones first and kind of see where it takes me. Okay, I'm going to start off with a Memento Summer Sky. It's a light blue tone. Mementos are fairly thick ink, and if you're familiar with them, they come in, I don't know how many different colors there are. There weren't too many a few years back. For all I know, they've added a ton of different colors, but I'm not sure. But one of the kind of really nice things about the Memento line is they're supposed to be color fast, in terms of they're not supposed to fade. And if that's so, that is an awesome characteristic of them. Because most dye-based inks will fade, and if anyone's ever, I don't know, kind of had a card out on display or something like that that they've stamped out in dye-based inks, for the most part, the brighter the color, it seems like those ones really fade out quite drastically over time. Or if you've ever given a card to someone and they've, I don't know, had it on their refrigerator or something like that, you see it, and it's sometimes the brighter tones are all but, completely faded away, after a very short span of time. Anyways, the Mementos are supposed to be, light fast, so I've never really tested it, in terms of, just having some stuff out in the sun or something like that, but we shall see. Even if they aren't light fast, if they're a little bit more, and that would be good too. Okay, this is a Memento London Fog. It's a gray color. And as I'm doing this, some of the ink from my impressions of the Rocks and Leaves stamp are smearing a little bit. I'm not allowing it to dry before I kind of go on here. But to me, it's not really too big of a deal. Alright, allowing some of the white of the paper to remain white. Okay, let's play around with some different tones here. Let's go into some different tones here. Let me try this Distress Ink tea dye. I don't know what it's going to look like over the top of this, but we'll see. It's not kind of the color that I would use on here in this kind of color scheme, very often. But I don't know, I've been doing a lot of stamping over the past, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, and kind of getting into a little bit more of a groove again with some different colors, and I just kind of feel like experimenting, and it's easy to get caught into some color schemes, that you found to work and might be your favorites or something like that, and once in a while you just kind of have to kind of break out of that, if you're ever to find some new combinations or whatnot, or some other things that you might like. One of my professors used to call something using your favorite tones or techniques or something like that a crutch. Actually, my friend of mine told me that that's what he was told. If you look at a bunch of your body of work and line them all up, and if you find that you're using certain things over and over and over and over again, without really stretching, it's kind of you can kind of, your strengths can become a crutch if you never kind of branch out beyond that. Okay, that was the Distress Ink. This is a gray, just Marfie gray, the number 12. And as far as the consistency goes on this page now, I've used the mementos are very thick in terms of their consistency, and so is the distress ink that I used. The Marvy inks are thinner, but I've laid down so much of a foundation with those first three thick inks that this is really kind of gliding around, and I can really feel this Marvy ink kind of sitting on the surface and not really penetrating too much, so I'll probably have to lay down a lot of applications of this ink, for it to really start to penetrate in here. Okay, that was the gray, and gray it's not a dark gray, but I think I'm going to clean off my tip here before I go on to my next color. And that would be the salvia blue, and then probably the light blue Marvy. It's kind of a warm gray that we have right now. It's kind of a muddy looking color. I want that warmth to kind of show through. These are, one thing about dye-based inks is they're transparent inks, so the colors that you lay down, even if they're underneath another color that you've laid down on top, will affect the overall, because you can see through. They're transparent again, the top layer colors. So all right, number 10, light blue, and again that previous color was salvia blue. Okay, this is getting pretty bright here. I'm having to use the tapping motion to lay down more colors. It's kind of building up color with each tap, like little beads of color. I find that when I'm wiping off color because the ink saturation is so thick around here. So I have to kind of build it up a little bit more. Going into some of my rocks, but leaving some of the rocks somewhat light in value, so it represents light hitting them. Okay. Alright, now let's see, with this number 10 blue here, I can see I'm starting to get somewhere in terms of establishing kind of a closer version of the color that I eventually want to get to. I don't want it to look real kind of muddy, in terms of that, just the gray and that distressing color. When I say muddy, I don't mean kind of a bad thing, but just in terms of a range. I want that tone down there, but I also want to offset a little bit with some more intense colors. Okay, that was the number 10. Trying to think if I want to add something else into it. Let's go with a bit of a darker tone. Okay, let's go with the number 3, blue. It's kind of a navy blue. One of the darker Marvy blues, in pad form at least. The Prussian blue is even darker. Okay, now see, I'm really hitting the shadows right here. There's a rock right here, so I'm kind of creating shadows underneath it, making that area darker. And let's create some shadows underneath these rocks by creating that darker base underneath there. It really kind of sets these rocks into the scene more. It gives them some weight. And opacity. Okay, now let's move into, almost done here with the toning. It didn't take too long. This is the black. I stamped out the rocks and the leaves in a black. So let's create a little bit more of a shadow with that same color. It's not really adding like a full version of black because the page is so wet and it's not absorbing that black color very quickly, so it's kind of more of a lighter version of that black. You know, I guess it would be a gray. Okay, so right down in here. Corners. I really want the to direct the viewer's eye down to this area, so I'm kind of closing off the top a little bit more with value in terms of making it darker. Okay, I don't want it so open up there. So let's close that off a little bit more. Okay, let's create a little bit of some shadows on the left side of the scene. Let's go in and do that down here as well to these rocks, anchoring them down. Closing off the top even more. Okay. Trying to assess what else I want to be going on in here. This is the ripple stamp. I might have some of those in there, I'm not sure. Lily grass. I think that might look good too. And jumping bass. Trying to figure out where I want that to go. Okay, let's blot off the splashing area a little bit so that it stamps out lighter on the perimeter. And if it stamps out lighter around the edge, it should blend into the surrounding area nicely. Okay, looks pretty good. It definitely needs some additional tone on there. I think I'll do that with pens. And let's go with the ripples here. Let's do it kind of in a subtle tone at first. This is the summer sky, which is very, very light. Doesn't show up on anything. It's extremely subtle. I'm sure to you guys watching this video, it's probably darn near invisible in there. That being said, let's move up into a darker tone. Let's try the salvia blue. Okay, it's a little bit darker. Let's blot out the edges here. Again, very, very subtle. Okay, I don't know if it's going to show up at all. I guess if you have a really great computer screen, it might. Computer monitor. Okay. I'm going to just keep it as is. I don't want to go too much darker with that, though. I don't think. Let's try some of this lily grass. Let's do the same thing. Let's have this kind of a similar approach to the lily grass as we did with the rocks and leaves. I'm going to go in, stamped it, colored it in black, and going back into here with the green pen. And let's get some additional texture around the fish, creating texture for our scene and kind of habitat for the fish. It's 3 impressions. Okay, and I'm starting to really like this just a tiny rocks stamp here. This is the unmounted version of it. Rubber, just used on an acrylic block with some Tekken peel, unmounted. Unmounted temporary mounting system material. Okay, this is the gray. I'm kind of stamping it off here to see what value it's going to be on here. It's going to be fairly dark, so let's see. Let's try this. Inking it up with the gray. Let's try some of this. This pen here is extremely dry, which might work perfectly for this. Okay, and let's try it in the darker area. Then I'll go for a second impression. There, it's pretty good. Ink it up in gray. Go with your pen of whatever color, and put a little bit of variation in there, and stamp it out. Let me go for another impression of it, maybe. Okay, I think we're looking pretty good. I tell you what, I like that. Let's do it again. Okay, I didn't color everything, I just, you know, put a few streaks in there, here and there. And I'm gonna blot that off once, and use it back here in the distance. Something like that. Okay, let's see what we have here. Okay. Can we get one more impression? Let's see. Okay. Whatever this material is, it's pretty amazing. It really is very, very sticky. Okay, let's see what we have here. I'm just going to use this oak branch in here. I think that'll look pretty good, just that section right there. Let's do that. Even if you're using just a smaller portion of a stamp, and I say this all the time, but ink up more than you think you're going to need, because I've seen it happen a lot where people stamp that out. I think, okay, I'm just going to use that portion. So they ink up just that portion, and they might stamp it out, and oh, you know, it's kind of floating in the middle here, you know. Ink up more than you think you're going to need, just so you don't have to do any repair work later. Meaning filling in areas that, you know, kind of they missed the impression. Okay, it's about right here. I think this is going to frame the scene nicely in that corner. It creates a bit of a foreground right there. Let me see that video just get a lot brighter. Let's go here, maybe. Let's put it down here on the corner. Just using a little bit right here of the stamp. Okay. All right. And where there's live foliage, maybe there's some dormant or dead foliage. That was oak branch. This is spooky branch. And let's kind of go right in here with it. It's kind of creating layer upon layer. This one I'm just stamping it out in black. Whatever's in the foreground you have to have kind of darker than the background, unless you're doing it in some kind of opaque pigment ink or something. Alright. See that branch right in here? Okay. And sometimes you have to kind of assess, you know. I guess that's what we're doing all the time in scenic stamping. I guess in other types of stamping too, but you know, in scenic stamping you're layering a lot of images. You have to kind of, you're always assessing kind of, you know, when is enough enough. I don't know. A lot of times when people ask me that in a workshop, I just say, hey, if you think you might want to use something, just use it. And if it kind of gets too busy in there, then at least you'll know, for the future. But it's not as if it's going to be some kind of disaster, adding one more branch or one more color or something like that. But that's always kind of better just to get in there and do it. That way, your piece, it doesn't have to be just scenic stamping, but if you're always kind of holding back, then you might never take a piece of art or whatever you're working on to its maximum resolution. Okay, let's see here. Oh, need some more blotter paper here. Okay, now, I think we need some additional some kind of additional tone for that jumping fish. Let's go with some green, maybe. A little bass. Let's give it some color. Kind of flesh them in a little bit. This is an alcohol pen. Why don't we add a little bit of shading down here? It's this color right here is a really, really light color. Add some shadows down here around some of these submerged rocks. I see those rocks are kind of submerged, I just thought of. Alright. Let's layer let's layer a little bit more imagery using that same stamp. Alright. This always happens to me. Oh, here. I'm looking for my pad, my black pad. Okay, let's see. Okay. Multiple values of those rocks now, just down here. I think that looks pretty good there, like that. Now let's get back into the toning process. Kind of have some of these rocks coming out of the water, fleshing them out a touch. Here's a little bit more of a bluish tone. Very, very light in value again. How about a little bit of tan? It's not going to read as that color on the fish because I already have other colors laid down there, but I just want this fish to stand out a little bit more in terms of maybe a little bit of temperature on it. Let's try this one. This one looks like a little bit of an orangish tinge. Okay, a little bit too much of an orangish tinge, so we go back to a little bit of the blue and blend that in a touch more. Okay. So it's like a frozen moment here at the this little hole. Okay, let's blend that in a little bit more around the edge. Okay, so I don't know. A very simple composition, very intimate, but a heck of a lot of texture. That's for sure. Okay, white gel pen. There's a lot of opportunity for me to do something that I really like to do. I'm going into some of those rippled areas. How this fish is kind of splashing out. Of the water. So I'll add some of these little white dots in there to reiterate the splashing texture, creating a little bit of a shimmer to the water. This is what kind of brings that little element of a little magical element to the water's surface. Okay. The rock has highlights on top, or just not highlights, but lit areas, and we just take the white pen, and where I've retained some of the lighter areas, I'm just going and adding that little touch of a highlight on top, okay? Where the rock is in the shade, out in these areas, I'm not doing it so much because those areas are in the shadows now, okay? I might add a dot to them or something, but not too much. Okay, this rock is illuminated over here. So adding some of those highlights on top. Okay. There's a rock over here. A couple of them. Now let's go into some additional textures. Down here we have these rocks or lilies that are dark little patches, ovals. Same with these rocks down here. Why not do the reverse, you know? Add in some I guess what might represent, you know, water highlights light on the water's surface, and we'll add in that same shape, kind of the complement to the darker shape, just doing it in light. Okay. And you're adding texture on the surface, so it kind of creates a surface layer to the scene. Alright, now all these scenes are kind of getting a bit redundant, you know, in terms of technique, but I don't know. I promise I'll try I'll show some different techniques here too, but I don't know, every time when I got into, first started doing these lessons, I figured I'd probably cover everything in about 25 different lessons, and every time I do one, a new one, I want to do something else with something I just learned, so I guess each lesson becomes a little bit more about, if you watched a few, I guess they become a little bit more about the, specific composition or something like that. This is the pigment ink in here, and just kind of creating a passage of light coming, looks like it's coming from kind of back in there, and it's kind of oozing out in there, so I've kind of taken and created a little bit more of a mist, on that corridor of, I don't know, corridor of illumination, for lack of a better term. I need to do more of these types of scenes like that. These kind of more intimate little areas, I like to do the kind of more majestic ones, that cover a lot of great expanse too, but I also like these little quiet, intimate little scenes that are like a little area that you might, I feel like I'm kind of hiking to or something like that, if you're hiking or fishing or something like that, and you kind of come around a corner and here's this sparkly little pool, That's what this type of area kind of represents to me. Okay, let's do a few little highlights on a couple branches that kind of get a little bit, I wouldn't say lost, but kind of blended into the background a little bit more than I want them to be. Let's just pull them out a little bit. few little highlights. This pen is a white gel pen. It's a Pilot Shoes 07. Okay, well, let's see what we have here. A few little highlights down there that really pulls that kind of branch out of the background, doesn't it? A lot of tones working in here. I think it's a very rich palette, and you can see where that's that distress ink right there. But you take those warm bits out, and it doesn't seem, I don't think it would be as rich and full of a color scheme without those, don't you think? Okay, so anyways, the little fishing hole scene. I don't know if it's a fishing hole, but little jumping bass and fly, little snapshot of you know, something that probably goes on all the time in this little pool here. So a lot of texture working in here, and a fun little scene to do. Sometimes scenic stamping, it doesn't have to be about any kind of great expansive mountain scene, with cabins and whatnot. It could be just like something like what might represent some 7-foot by 7-foot little space somewhere along a stream or something like that. So anyways, thanks for watching as always, and hope you enjoyed the scene and the process.